Hello everyone. Our distant ancestors left behind creations that still amaze us today. If you're already subscribed, you've seen the evidence with your own eyes. If not, there's no better moment to hit that button and join the journey. Today, we're diving once more into the shadows of the past, unearthing stories and artifacts that defy belief. Some of them are truly extraordinary. Subscribe now. The past is calling, and the adventure begins here. Glastonbury in Somerset, England is a place famous for its enormous annual music festival, which is considered to be the world's best. It's also famous for its many ancient monuments and buildings, including its abbey. In 2011, the abbey welcomed the return of the Glastonbury Grace Cup after an absence of 125 years. The ornately carved drinking vessel, which is effectively a tankard made of oak, was made during the 16th century and is said to have once belonged to the many abbots of Glastonbury. The scenes depicted on its surface include the crucifixion as attended by all 12 apostles. The origins of the name Grace Cup are unclear, but it's thought to be connected to the artifact's religious nature. After being exhibited in Glastonbury in 1886 to mark the inauguration of the town's antiquarian society, it was sold to private owners and has remained with the same family ever since. Local legends say it was carved in defiance when the first Glastonbury Abbey was dissolved in 1539, but that can't be proven. Considering the fact it's made of wood, it's in astonishingly good condition for something that's approaching 500 years old. In 1872, this tiny gold plate was discovered next to the 1,800-year-old remains of a woman buried underneath York Station, England. It took almost 150 years to work out the purpose, but archaeologists and historians now believe that they've finally gotten to the bottom of it. They think it's a 3rd century mouth plaque and would literally have been placed inside the deceased woman's mouth at the time of her passing. According to the superstitions of the time, the presence of the golden plaque would have prevented evil spirits from entering her body and either taking possession of it or preventing her from reaching the afterlife. Only 23 such artifacts are known to exist in the world. This one is the only example ever found in the British Isles. The bodies of the poor wouldn't have been considered to be worth protecting all that time ago, so this woman would have enjoyed high social status. Unfortunately, she wasn't buried with anything that might identify her. The beliefs reflected by the mouthpiece are more commonly associated with Eastern mysticism than anything the Romans believed in, so it's odd to see such a thing so far west. Archaeological sites require regular maintenance. In April 2018, experts in Egypt decided to reduce the level of groundwater at the site of the Kom Ombo temple in Aswan. When they did so, they found a marble sculpture of the head of the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius. The emperor is depicted as having curly hair and a beard, which is consistent with the majority of contemporary representations of him. He ruled during the 2nd century and was a notable writer and philosopher, as well as a leader. Statues of Roman emperors, especially those as significant as Marcus Aurelius, are relatively common in Italy, but it's rare to find one in Egypt. As you can see from these images, the emperor's marble head is damaged. Experts think that it was probably once part of a full-size statue of the emperor, and that it may have been deliberately decapitated as a show of defiance. However, the fact that it was found in a well means it's possible that it was thrown in there as a votive offering. We'll never know for sure. You would expect the oldest example of gold work ever discovered in British history to be in a museum, and it is now, but that's not where it was found. In April 2018, this gold strip, thought to be 4,500 years old or more, was found by a collector inside a box of spare watch parts at a car boot sale. That's the British equivalent of a garage or rummage sale or a flea market. John Workman, who spotted the gold strip and thought it might be valuable, bought it for next to nothing and took it to experts. They confirmed its age and speculated that it might once have been a piece of jewelry or perhaps a sword decoration during the Bronze Age. Similar-looking items have been found in the country before, but none this old. The material would have been extremely rare in the country in that era, because no gold mines existed in the country, and so any that could be found would have been obtained by panning. Despite being so small, it was thought that it might be worth up to $3,000 should John choose to part with it. That's more than 100 times what he paid for it, so it's no surprise he cashed in. Our next discovery takes us further north and deeper into the past. In 1985, a farmer out for a walk on the beach in the Scottish island of Sanday stumbled upon a small pile of bones and an unusual-looking plaque. He had no idea what he was looking at, but he thought it looked ancient. He was right. This whalebone plaque marked the position of what is now known as the Scarboat Burial. Before being used as a grave marker, it was a lead bullion weight used to weigh gold and silver for trading purposes. Both the artifact and the burial it was left beside are 1,100 years old and Viking in origin. The Viking boat itself had long since rotted away by the time archaeologists found it, but the rusted iron rivets left behind clearly show its shape. The boat was set into a stone-lined pit and contained the remains of a man, a woman, their child, and an array of Viking grave goods, including swords, arrows, bone combs, game pieces, and spindle whorls. The fate that befell the family is unknown, but they must have been highly regarded by their peers to be afforded a burial like this. All archaeological discoveries are interesting in their own way, but a first is always special. It's rare for an expert to see something that nobody else has ever seen before, but it does happen. Here's an example of it happening in England in April 2017. A metal detectorist found this unusual gilded silver object in a field in Devon and took it to a local museum for help identifying it. The museum was stumped, so staff there consulted with experts from elsewhere. They're still not sure what it is now, but their best guess is that it's a tiny reliquary treasure box, and it's somewhere between 1,000 and 1,400 years old. If it's a reliquary, it ought to have a religious relic inside it, but if there ever was one, it was long gone by the time the metal detectorist found it. The gold and blue glass setting of the artifact suggests that it was of enormous value to whoever owned it, but without anything to compare it to, we can't say why. If it's not a reliquary, archaeologists have no idea what it might be. In December 2022, archaeologists in Turkey made a startling claim. They believe that they've found the world's oldest narrative scene. It's a stone carving at a site called Cyberk, and the experts believe it to be 11,000 years old. The scene is made up of two panels and depict human figures interacting with animals. The first scene shows a man holding his genitals while being approached from either side by leopards, and the second shows a man squatting and seemingly brandishing a snake at a bull. The two panels are adjacent to each other horizontally, thus indicating that they were intended to be seen together, and so can be interpreted as a narrative. The scientists and archaeologists who've made the claim haven't done so in haste. The initial discovery of the carvings happened in 2021, after which more than a year of careful study and investigation was carried out. Ancient residential buildings and communal structures have been found in the area in the past, indicating the presence of an early farming community. Excavation work is still ongoing as of early 2023, so it's possible that more discoveries will be made. Our next discovery happened in January 2023, or at least partially happened in January 2023. This stunning gold and enamel pendant was found in the old city district of Mainz, Germany in 2008. Experts thought it might be a 12th century reliquary, but couldn't open it to find out, because the delicate state of the artifact meant that opening it without breaking it was impossible. They tried to X-ray it in 2008, but the results were inconclusive. They're now in no doubt that it is indeed a reliquary, because the pendant has been scanned in 2023 using a method known as neutron tomography. The results show 5 small packets inside the pendant, within each of which are splinters of bone. It's to be presumed that these are the partial remains of a significant religious figure, although it may never be possible to verify that person's identity. Reliquaries like this usually also contained a strip of parchment to proclaim the name of the person whose remains they contain, but that doesn't appear to have been the case for this one. This promising new method may now be used on other ancient artifacts to peek inside them without damaging them. 2,500 years ago in China, there was only one man you wanted to see if you were seriously ill. His name was Bian, and he was a legend in his own lifetime for his healing abilities. The doctor was also said to be clairvoyant and is credited with numerous miracles in the ancient Chinese book Shi Ji, where he's literally referred to as the Doctor of Miracles. Legend has it that his skills were given to him by an elderly magician as thanks after Bian was kind to him during his previous career as a hostel manager. Most historians and archaeologists thought him to be nothing more than a myth, until the 2013 discovery of almost 1,000 bamboo tiles from Laoguan Mountain in Chengdu. After being collected and studied, the tiles were identified as medical books written by a school operated by Bian. They list advice, illnesses and treatments in dermatology, ophthalmology, gynecology, and traumatology. The texts even list the major points of acupuncture, which means acupuncture itself could have been a Bian invention. He probably didn't perform miracles, but it's clear that he was exceptionally far ahead of his time as a physician. A few years ago, the world went crazy for fidget spinners. The fad was everywhere for a few years and then disappeared completely. During the peak of their popularity, someone tried to claim that the ancient Mesopotamians invented the fidget spinner thousands of years ago. Here's the artifact that they presented as evidence. It's definitely Mesopotamian in origin, but we're sorry to say that it isn't a fidget spinner. In fact, this is a very ancient weapon. When the 3,800-year-old artifact was first put on display in the Oriental Institute of the University of Chicago, USA, experts thought it was a spinning toy made of baked clay. Today, though, the museum's experts think it was probably the head of a mace. The artifact was first found in the vicinity of a temple, which supports the idea of it being a mace, because the ancient Mesopotamians thought maces were the weapons of the gods. The weathered remains of carved animal heads can be seen on the sides of the object, which is again consistent with the design of ancient maces. It's still a fascinating object, but it's not a fidget spinner. In April 2018, it was decided that the old Newington Hotel in York, England, would be redeveloped into houses. As part of the process, the hotel's swimming pool was ripped out. To the astonishment and terror of construction workers, more than 70 human skeletons were found beneath the pool. Professional archaeologists were summoned to the scene and quickly identified that these were the remains of Roman soldiers and their families. It's now thought that this is one of the oldest Roman burial grounds ever discovered in the British Isles, created not long after the Romans seized control of the territory in the mid-1st century. The really odd thing about the discovery is that the skeletons weren't buried particularly deep below the pool. It seems impossible that the skeletons wouldn't have been seen when the hotel was built in the 19th century, which raises the possibility that the original builders were entirely aware of what they were building on top of, but decided to keep it quiet and press on with their project. In May 2018, amateur metal detectorist Louise Stahlschmidt unearthed a few melted lumps of bronze in a field in Trompgard, Jutland, Denmark. She initially thought they were just a few ancient buttons, but she was wrong. When she posted pictures of her finds online, they were spotted by Jeppe Bull Jepsen of the Van Cecil Historical Museum. Jeppe immediately recognized the objects as bronze fittings of the kind associated with Iron Age wagon burials and excitedly arranged a full excavation of the site. His suspicions were correct. The entire wagon was still down there in the ground. The reason the pieces that Louise found were melted is that the wagon was deliberately set on fire at the time of the burial. This is atypical of what we think we know about wagon burials 2,200 years ago, and experts aren't sure what its significance was. It can't have been intended as an insult to the deceased. The grave is laden with too many fine grave goods for that. Aside from the wagon, archaeologists also found a drinking horn, bronze kettles, a drinking glass, gold rings, and broken silver pieces of drinking cups. This was clearly a person of great importance. The Torrs pony cap and Torrs horns are part of one object called the Torrs Chemphrean, but whether these Iron Age artifacts were ever supposed to be joined together is a matter of some debate among historians. The bronze objects are currently in the National Museum of Scotland, and were discovered at the same time and in the same place. It's obvious that the horns were joined to the pony cap after the pony cap was made, but nobody's sure whether they were made specifically for this purpose. Some experts think that the horns are drinking horns and didn't originally have any connection to the cap whatsoever. The decorations on the artifacts are typical examples of the La Tène style, which is a form of Celtic art. That helps historians to date them to around 2,200 years ago, although it's possible that the horns are a century or two younger. The fine design and skillful construction of the artifacts is a testament to the skill of elite Iron Age British craftspeople and proves that the Romans were inaccurate when they later described the ancient occupants of Scotland as savages and barbarians. Sweden is always a good place to go looking for Viking artifacts, and that proved to be the case yet again when a gorgeous Viking brooch was discovered in May 2015. It was found during scheduled excavations in the port of Birka, the oldest town in the whole country. To be totally accurate, the artifact isn't an entire brooch. It's a tiny dragon head that was once part of a brooch, and it's made from bronze. Archaeologists were especially interested in the object because it perfectly matched the shape of a mold that was found in the same place in 1870. So it's reasonable to assume that we now have both the artifact and the mold it was made from. Birka was once a vital trading center, importing and exporting goods from Scandinavia to Central and Eastern Europe, and even as far away as the Orient. It was established during the 8th century and has been a UNESCO World Heritage Site since 1993. Unusually for a representation of a dragon, the creature depicted on this brooch has curly hair and open jaws, making it unique. Nothing that looks like it has ever been found before or since, with the obvious exception of the mold. The bronze matrix of Sarmizegetusa, Regia, Romania, is a historical artifact so fascinating that even though it was discovered in 2013, it wasn't presented to the wider world until 2016, after researchers had spent 3 years studying it. The hexagonal piece is more than 2,000 years old and is a fascinating example of ancient abstract art. It's the only one of its kind that's ever been discovered in Europe, and it might never have been found had it not been for a storm that uprooted a tree in Romania's Sarmizegetusa Regia Archaeological Park, revealing the matrix hiding among its roots. The purpose of this object was to create other objects, usually decorative ones, by a combination of stamping and casting. That's why the exterior faces of the matrix are covered in carvings of mythological creatures drawn from the folklore of many early European civilizations, along with real-world animals like lions, rhinos, bears, wolves, and antelope. Aside from being a one-of-a-kind find, this ancient mold is also remarkable for being in such good condition. It must surely have been used to make hundreds of ornate pieces in its time, and yet after the mud from the tree roots was washed away, it was found to be in a near-immaculate state. When Mount Vesuvius blew its top in the year 79 and buried Pompeii under ash and debris, it was the greatest natural disaster that Italy had ever seen. But as we said a moment ago, it also created the greatest archaeological site that historians have ever known. Archaeologists have been working through the site for well over 200 years, and in December 2018, they made the incredibly rare discovery of the remains of a horse still wearing its harness inside its ancient stable. Based on the evidence at the scene, it's likely that the stable stands on the grounds of the former home of a high-ranking Roman military officer. According to Massimo Ossana, the head of the long-standing archaeological park that's been established at Pompeii, it's likely that the horse came to a terrible end. I mean, that's true of everyone and everything that perished in Pompeii that fateful day. Most of Pompeii's wealthy residents had horses, but horses are rare discoveries at the site. Experts think that's probably because the residents would have used their horses in an attempt to escape the catastrophe, some of whom may even have succeeded. Shall we look at one more Scottish discovery before we move on? Well, why not? In the 9th and 10th centuries, the Vikings attacked, invaded, and pillaged their way across much of Europe. Local stories claim that the native Scots put up a good fight when they landed in Scotland, with a particularly massive and devastating battle fought in Galloway. There was no strong evidence on this conflict until 2014, when amateur archaeologist Derek McLennan uncovered the Galloway Hoard, an extraordinary collection of Viking valuables. It has the biggest collection of Viking riches ever discovered in the British Isles, with slightly under 100 relics dating back over 1,000 years. It's difficult to say which individual piece in the trove is the most spectacular, although many people believe it's the exquisite Anglo-Saxon cross. Because of the ornate nature of this item, scholars believe it can only have belonged to a monarch or a powerful religious figure. The cross is composed of black niello, with gold leaf ornamentation and carved iconography referring to the Gospel authors Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. The cross alone is valued at over $2 million. The entire collection is significantly more valuable. Let's stay in Scotland a little longer and take a look at the Cramond Lioness. This Roman-era sculpture was found close to the mouth of Edinburgh's River Almond in 1997 by a passing ferryman. Archaeologists said at the time that it was the most important Roman-era discovery in Scotland for generations. It's an unusual sculpture that depicts a male prisoner, bound at the hands and feet, being mauled and eaten by a lioness. Her teeth are sunk deep into his skull. The entire sculpture is carved from a single block of stone measuring approximately 1.5 meters long and a little over 60 centimeters tall. We'll never know precisely why it was created, but some historians believe it may have marked the entrance to the tomb of a Roman military commander who served at Cramond Roman fort nearby. If that's the case, the tomb has never been found. Experts have no idea how or why the sculpture ended up in the river and arrived at the place where it was found. Like the tourist chamfering, the sculpture is currently on display inside the National Museum of Scotland. Our next discovery is a bit macabre, yet fascinating at the same time. It concerns the mummified hand of a child, discovered in a medieval cemetery in Hungary in 2018. The rest of the child's body had been skeletonized, but the hand, forearm, and part of the upper back were mysteriously preserved. Scientist János Balázs studied the phenomenon and came to a remarkable conclusion. The tiny copper coin found in the child's hand was responsible for the partial mummification. Copper is known for its antimicrobial properties, but preservation of this magnitude had never been documented before. At the same time, Balazs discovered that the child had been buried centuries after the cemetery's primary use. Most burials dated from the 12th to the 16th century, but this infant likely died about 150 years ago. The most plausible theory is that it was a stillborn child from a nearby family. The grieving mother, perhaps without access to formal funeral rites, wrapped the baby in a cloth, buried it in the abandoned cemetery, and placed a coin in its hand as a symbolic offering according to an ancient European burial tradition, possibly intended to help the soul pass into the afterlife. While similar customs have been recorded in other parts of Europe, this is the first documented case of such a ritual in Hungary. We're heading back to England now to look at another ancient Roman discovery. It's a 1,600-year-old sarcophagus, and it was found close to Borough Market in London in 2017. The discovery was made by accident during construction work. The stone sarcophagus is impressive, but it's not as grand a discovery as it could have been. Unfortunately, it seems the construction workers aren't the first people ever to find the artifact. Its lid was open when it was found, and it contained nothing but soil. It seems the body, along with anything else that may have been inside it, was stolen by tomb raiders, most likely during the 18th century. However, the design and quality of the stone sarcophagus have convinced experts that the person it once contained would have come from a wealthy household, possibly someone of nobility. A full excavation of the area seemingly confirmed this find, as the sarcophagus turned out to have been built into the walls of a mausoleum. Such burials were reserved only for the elite of Roman society. The sarcophagus is now in the hands of the Museum of London, but has yet to be put on display to the public. Shopping lists are going out of fashion. These days, people either order their groceries for delivery through the internet or write lists on their phones. The days of writing a list on paper and then taking it to the shop with you are almost over. To be honest, we don't know why our parents and grandparents still bothered with paper shopping lists when they could have had awesome mechanical lists like this one. It's thought to be a relic of the 1920s or 1930s and was found in England in April 2021. The system is simple. The names of common household goods are etched onto the brass block with movable markers next to each one. So long as a household remembered to update the markers whenever they ran out of a specific commodity, shopping was as easy as taking the block on your shopping trip and buying whatever the markers pointed to. This would have been a convenient gadget for the time, but also came with limitations. It's great for remembering things that you buy regularly, but doesn't include space for anything else you might need to purchase. Since we've dipped our toes into the realm of magic and miracles, let's go a little further. In 2015, archaeologists found these tiny ancient silver scrolls in Jordan. The silver foil they're written on is rolled so tightly that it's impossible to unwrap them, but it's possible to read what's written on them by using a CT scanner. Unfortunately, that didn't get us very far. The language written on the 1,300-year-old scrolls is unknown and can't be translated. It seems to be a combination of Pseudo-Arabic and Greek symbols. Interestingly, some of the few Greek symbols that can be identified are associated with magic. As we already know that spells and incantations were often hammered out into gold or silver and then buried in the ancient world, it's highly likely that this is a magic scroll. It's unlikely that it was ever meant to be read again after being written. Instead, it would have been placed inside an amulet and then either worn on the body or placed in the home as a way of warding off evil spirits. The city of Pompeii in Italy is probably the most famous archaeological site in the world. Hundreds of discoveries have been made there over the years, and yet the discoveries keep coming. In 2018, a team working in the Regia 5 region of Pompeii excavated a row of houses with fully intact second-floor balconies. The balconies are so well preserved that they still have their original tile roofs, railings, and even a few amphorae that had been left on them to dry out in the sun before the volcano struck. Some of them even have frescoed walls with their original colors still not only visible, but vivid. Most houses unearthed in Pompeii no longer have their second floors because they collapsed under the weight of all the pumice and ash from the eruption of Vesuvius, so these properties are rare and precious finds. Preserving and stabilizing the homes and their balconies is a project that may take years, but it's eventually hoped that visitors will be able to walk from the existing Via di Nola and Alley of the Silver Wedding to the fully excavated properties on a new route. Our next discovery takes us to Cornwall in England. It's an earthenware pot which dates back to the Bronze Age. The artifact is impressively old, but wouldn't normally be all that exciting. as earthenware discoveries from this era are relatively common in England. What makes this one different is that it's not empty. The 4,000-year-old pot is believed to contain human remains. If experts are right about this, this is a fully intact human cremation and burial. The pot was discovered with a cluster of other Bronze Age artifacts, including flint tools and other pieces of pottery, at a site called Hendersick Barrow, close to Loo. The barrow is in the middle of a farmer's field, so the archaeologists responsible for the discovery thanked their lucky stars that it had somehow never been damaged by a plow in all the years it's been buried there. We don't have any idea why the people who lived in this part of Cornwall during the Bronze Age buried their people in barrows, and it's possible that we never will. The soil in this part of England is acidic, so a lot of burials, artifacts, and other relics from this era are destroyed long before archaeologists find them. Subscribe now and turn on the bell so you don't miss a thing. Fascinating discoveries await you in every video. Thanks for your support. See you soon.